Major elements of the landscape include cropland, pasture, woods, wetlands, streams and rivers, and land developed to support agriculture or for housing, urban centers, and infrastructure. The lands that we help to protect usually are a complex mix of these elements. A few properties are simpler, such as the 243-acre farm owned by Richard and Nancy Montgomery, which is used for crops and nothing else. Although our language tends to imply separate categories of landscape, each element is diverse, and the different elements in the landscape mosaic are integrated by the flow of water. With most of the landscape in Knox County used for agriculture, rainfall tends to first land in fields. Rain can dislodge soil particles and surface flow can carry soil off the field. Grassy drainage strips, such as used by Richard, Nancy, Jeffrey, and Brian Montgomery, can slow the flow of rainwater over the surface, preserving soil for growing crops. Often this best management practice is hidden from views from the level of roads. Surface flow adds to headwater streams. Water that percolates to buried drainage tiles eventually flows into streams. Small streams may flow into patches of woodland, where they are cooled and where falling leaves add food for downstream aquatic wildlife. In winter and early spring, erosion can be reduced by cover crops such as rye or winter wheat, as seen here on the John and Donna Horn farm. Alternating cultivated field with cover crops or wooded strips adds diversity to production as well as protecting soil. The landscape of many farms, such as this one owned by Alan and Tracy Castle, includes wetlands and larger streams in addition to the agricultural land. Wetlands are parts of the landscape with three elements. Surface water is present at least 2 weeks per year. The soils are of certain types that are low in oxygen, and the plants are dominated by species adapted for these conditions. The water in wetlands can come from rain, flooded streams, or from under the ground, and these differences influence the kind of plants and animals that thrive locally. This wooded wetland is unusual because it is perched on top of a hill. Clay soils prevent fast drainage of water. Looking down the hill from our drone, we can see Granny Creek, a larger stream which has accumulated water from many headwater streams and landscape types. On this farm owned by Daniel Galbraith, wetlands without trees have formed where land dips into the water table. Crops are grown in the slightly higher and drier ground. Groundwater tends to have a lower pH, or acidity, and this favors certain sedges and skunk cabbage. Wooded areas provide habitat for understory flowers and wildlife. Parts of the woods on this farm support wooded wetland, with marsh marigold and other wetland plants. Riparian describes the area along the banks of a natural stream or river. Many of our conservation easements include riparian areas as part of the landscape. Riparian areas provide many benefits to the community, including buffering the river from erosion or chemicals that might be washed off agricultural fields. Riparian woods, as seen in another farm owned by Daniel Galbraith, also provide habitat for wildlife, and shading cools the river, promoting healthier populations of fish. The Kokosing River exchanges water with underground aquifers, so the clean river translates into clean well water. Two adjacent easements donated by Alan and Tracy Castle and Daniel Galbraith have riparian woods along the banks of the Kokosing River. These adjacent easements are just north of Mount Vernon. Two branches of the Kokosing River meet here. The main stem from the west and the north branch. In the last sampling by the Ohio EPA, this section of river met the highest standards of diversity for a warm water stream. One reason we care about this is that the groundwater under this part of the river provides drinking water to the city of Mount Vernon. If pollutants entered the aquifer here, contamination would reach the city's wellheads in less than 2 years. This is an example of how water links the landscape, both above and below the ground. Two of our easements were donated by James and Maureen Buchwald. These protected properties provide wooded riparian protection for the Kokosing River, and they protect the scenic values along the Kokosing Gap Trail. The tall trees of the forested hills provide habitat for the threatened cerulean warbler and many other species of birds. Jerry Simpson's donated easement maintains habitat for wildlife, such as pheasant and other animals that need a mix of grassy fields, ponds, and headwater streams. The same mix of habitats is found in Janet Corr's 169 acres. One of the wooded wetlands that we helped to protect, Blackjack Wetland Preserve, was purchased by the City of Mount Vernon using funds from the Clean Ohio program. The State Funding Committee was impressed by the presence of several threatened species of animal and plant that require high-quality wetlands. Buttonbush, sedges, salamanders, dragonflies, and butterflies indicate a very unusual, if not unique, element of Knox County's landscape. But even this area is a mosaic of different elements, including early second growth field, a small stream, Delano Run, and riparian woods. Protection is challenged by the proximity of urban landscape. Two other protected properties adjoin in northwest Knox County. Almost 300 acres of farmland and riparian wetland are owned by Bruce and Nancy Lanker. Next to it is 63 acres that is primarily wetland of three types: sedge meadow, wooded wetland, and riparian forest protecting the upper Kokosing River. The sedge meadow is especially unusual in our landscape, requiring special soils, water flow, and a history of low disturbance. The Owl Creek Conservancy continues to work with willing landowners and partners, including our members, to protect Knox County's landscape and that of neighboring counties.